Thousands of medical workers in Madrid have marched against plans to privatise hospitals. The government insists it's part of the austerity measures needed to pick the country up from its deep recession. Austerity is biting ever harder in Spain, where half of all young people are unemployed. Well, now let's talk to investment advisor Patrick Young. Patrick, protesters have once again demonstrated in Madrid. This is an almost daily occurrence now. Just how long can the government carry on not listening to its people?
Well, that's a really interesting question altogether, Bill, because they've done it incredibly successfully for the course of the last 6 months or so, since they've been in, for want of a better term, power. Because, I mean, here is a government that has effectively an overall majority. They can do absolutely anything they want, and they seem to be absolutely determined to do more or less nothing. And it's really a tragedy because they're not helping the Spanish economy and they're not helping the people either.
But the government insists the cuts are necessary to maintain hospitals, provide people with medical care. Won't privatising the health service help, Patrick? Isn't that the right answer?
Look, the problem is that the Spanish government doesn't have any money, and that's ultimately the problem. The difficulty with the Spanish government is that it hasn't actually wanted to bite the bullet over the multiple areas in which it's been deficient for many, many years. Admittedly, one could say that was the previous government rather than the current government. However, the truth is there is no money to pay all of these nurses and doctors. There is no money for this lavish government infrastructure. It has to be privatised, sold off. There have to be savage cuts because truly Spain has spent the last decade living on the never never. It was built on the back of a huge property bubble. The bubble was unsustainable. Nobody managed to manage that. And unfortunately, while we can obviously say it's a tragedy for the poor independent healthcare professionals, there's just no way to manage to find the money to pay them in modern Spain.
Looking beyond Spain, a deeper union has just been agreed on by Brussels, Patrick. Now, won't this determination see those predicting the euro collapsing being proved wrong? People like you, the union seems to be determined to carry on, and it seems to be succeeding.
Well, absolutely. The biggest shock of the whole year has undoubtedly been the fact that the euro is held together. Now, let me tell you something that my Romanian IT experts have been telling me about recently. Apparently, the buzz-vogue phrase at the moment in the world of computers is to refer to something doing a Lance Armstrong. What it means is you're looking at the computer, the program seems to be functioning properly, but at the same point in time, you know there's something underneath the surface that's going to cause you a huge problem in the near future. And that's what's happening with the European Union. The European Union is putting on a brave face. It's throwing money around the place. It's trying all manner of things to hold together a cracking and creaking facade. And ultimately, you know, they might just manage to carry it off. But ultimately, I think the smart money is waiting in the wings, and it's looking at the whole idea that we are going to see a euro breakdown, even if it's not going to be as instantaneous as some of us might have predicted.
So all this putting on a brave face is superficial, you think? The French President, François Hollande, he said there's no doubt about the integrity of the Eurozone. Surely that sort of talk, that perseverance, will keep the Union together by convincing investors and bringing confidence back. And that's what is needed.
Oh, Bill, I'm terribly sorry. This is the French president, Mr. Hollande. You're talking about integrity and encouraging investors. Only 2 weeks ago, this is Mr. Hollande, who was about to wage economic war on the entirety of India because Lakshmi Mittal, the most successful man in the history of steelmaking, had the temerity to suggest that he wanted to close some production in France because the French workers weren't productive. This is a man who oversees an economy where 57% of the French economy is run by the government. That's not an economy. That's not capitalism. That's more like something that would have had you parading around Red Square in 1985. Come on. Realistically and seriously, of course, the European Union's political classes are all running around at the moment telling us that everything's fine. They all sound like the end of a Mozart opera singing the rather groovy morality tale that finishes off the great operatic works. But ultimately, is the European Union cohesive? And I think the terrible, tragic problem is, as a trading zone, a brilliant idea. As an instrument of total control, social policy, Uber banking arrangements and everything being fiscally organised, it's a catastrophe. The euro is built on sand. Ultimately, buildings built on sand collapse.
So says Patrick Young. Always good to talk to you about this, Patrick. Always enjoy our chats. Thanks very much indeed for joining us live here on RT.